Why didn't I keep walking? That's what I ask myself now, 2 days later, with his scent clinging to my threadbare coat and wolves watching my boarding house from the shadows. But in that moment, with sleet coming down and my stomach eating itself for the 3rd day running, I stopped in the alleyway because his eyes reminded me of my brother's. Not the color. His were winter gray, the kind that holds both ice and fire depending on the light. Cam's had been brown, warm as creek stones in summer, but they had the same look. That hollow thing that happens when hunger stops being a feeling and becomes a state of being, when your body forgets it was ever meant to feel full. The stranger was slumped against the bakery's back wall, where the brick still held a ghost of warmth from the ovens inside. Blood crusted his temple. His clothes, once fine, I could tell, hung off his frame. Someone had beaten him badly. I had 1 piece of bread left. The heel of yesterday's loaf, so stale, I'd been planning to soften it in melted snow and make it last 2 more meals. Here. I held it out. He didn't take it. Just stared at me with those unsettling eyes, like he was cataloging every detail of my face for some future purpose I couldn't fathom. It's not poisoned, I said, trying for humor. I'm too poor to afford poison. The corner of his mouth twitched. Why? Why what? Why give me anything? His voice was raw, underused. You're starving too. I can smell it on you. That should have been my first clue. Normal humans don't smell starvation. But I was 23, naive, and I'd been raised to believe that being kind mattered more than being careful. My mother's voice, always in my head. We take care of each other, Claire. That's what separates us from beasts. She'd been wrong about that. I'd learned exactly how beastly humans could be when Cam got sick, and we couldn't afford the healer. When the landlord threw us out 3 days after we buried him. Because you're hungry, I said simply, and pressed the bread into his filthy hand. Our fingers touched, just for a second. Later, I'd remember that moment, the spark of it, like static before a lightning strike. How his pupils blew wide, how every muscle in his body went rigid, then very, very still. What's your name? He asked quietly. Claire. I was already backing away, unnerved by the intensity of his focus. Claire Holt. Claire. He said it like a word he'd been searching for, like an answer. But he never finished. His head snapped toward the mouth of the alley, nostrils flaring. Then he was running, faster than any starving man should move, and disappeared into the sleet before I could blink. I stood there like an idiot, hand still extended, watching the space where he'd been. My bread was gone, and so was he. Only the faint smell of pine remained. Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe. Now back to our story. The next morning, I woke to my stomach trying to eat itself with regret. No bread, no money, no prospects. The factory foreman had dismissed me with barely a glance yesterday. You're too small for the floor work. Try the laundries. But the laundries paid half what the factories did, and I was already 2 weeks behind on rent. I knew I had one option left, but I hated myself for even considering it. The market district at dawn, that's when merchants tossed rotten vegetables into bins behind their stalls. When quick hands and quicker feet meant the difference between eating and starving. I'd never stolen anything before. Cam and I had gone hungry after Dad died, before Mom found seamstress work, but we'd never crossed that line. Hunger, though, has a way of rewriting your morals, and I was 3 days past caring about the person I used to be, which is how I found myself crouched in the pre-dawn shadows, watching Eva, the vegetable merchant, dump a basket of half-rotted potatoes into her bin. I moved fast, grabbed 3 potatoes, shoved them inside my coat. Thief! Eva's hand clamped around my wrist like a vice. I knew it! I knew you'd been circling! Please, I'm sorry, I'll put them back. You'll put them back and pay the fine, or I'm calling the guards. Her voice carried across the market. Other merchants were turning, watching. A crowd was forming around us now. My heart hammered. The fine for theft was 5 silver. I didn't even have 5 copper. And if the guards came, if they arrested me, the boarding house would throw my belongings into the street. I don't have any money, I whispered. Then you shouldn't have stolen. Eva's face was red with righteousness. Guards! Guards! The crowd pressed closer. I saw faces I recognized. The baker who'd sold me yesterday's bread, the seamstress who'd told me she had no work. No sympathy in any of them. Just the cold satisfaction of watching someone else fall farther than they had. This was how it ended then. Not with dignity. Not with the kindness my mother believed in. With me stealing rotted potatoes while strangers watched like it was entertainment. Suddenly, the crowd parted like water around a stone as he stepped through. My breath caught. The dying man from the alley was gone, his rags replaced with dark leather and wool. He was taller than I'd remembered, broader in the shoulders, moving with a predator's grace that made people step back instinctively. His hair was dark against sharp cheekbones, and those winter-gray eyes cut through the crowd like a blade. They found mine. My heart kicked against my ribs. "Let her go," he said quietly. Eva's grip tightened. "This is none of your concern, sir. The girl's a thief." "She's not a thief." His voice didn't rise, but something in it made Eva flinch. "She's desperate. There's a difference. The law doesn't—" "How much?" He pulled a small leather purse from his belt. "How much for your loss and your trouble?" Eva's eyes went calculating. 10 silver. The potatoes aren't worth 10 silver even if they were fresh. But he counted out the coins anyway, one by one, into her greedy palm. Then he added 2 more. "For your discretion." Eva dropped my wrist and pocketed the coins with a toothy smile. The crowd, sensing the entertainment was over, began to disperse. I stood frozen, face burning, as he turned those winter-gray eyes on me. "Walk," he said softly, "before she changes her mind." He fell into step beside me, one hand at the small of my back, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him through my thin coat. Guiding me through the market, past the stalls, into a side street where the crowd couldn't follow. Only then did I wrench away from him. "Why did you do that?" My voice shook. "I don't need your charity." "You were about to be arrested for 3 rotted potatoes." His tone was flat. "That's not charity. That's basic math." "I'll pay you back." "With what?" I had no answer. We both knew it. He studied me silent, and heat crawled up my neck under the weight of his attention. I made myself look back. The broken man from the alley was gone. This one was all lean strength and barely restrained power, the kind that made you acutely aware of every breath you took. Dangerous, magnetic. But his eyes hadn't changed. Still that same raw pain, like a wound that wouldn't close. My heart wanted to touch him. My mind told me to run. "You followed me," I said, putting the pieces together. "Have you been watching me?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because 2 nights ago, you gave me your last piece of bread." He stepped closer and I felt my pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "So I need to know if you're real." "Real? I'm standing right here." "Are you kind because you're stupid, or because you're strong?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm not stupid." "Then you're strong." He said it with certainty, like he'd confirmed something. "And that means we need to talk. Somewhere private." "I'm not going anywhere alone with you." "Smart." That almost smile again. "But you will anyway. Because you want to know who I am, and why wolves have been circling your boarding house since the night we met." My blood went ice cold. "You're insane." "I'm cursed," he corrected. "Or I was, until you touched me." He held out his hand, the same hand I'd pressed the bread into. "My name is Harrison Voss. I'm the Alpha King, and you, Claire, are the only person in this entire kingdom who's shown me genuine kindness in 6 months." My mind was spinning. Alpha King? The ruler of the shifter territories that bordered the human lands. The king who'd closed the borders 3 years ago, who let trade dry up, who didn't care that humans were starving as long as his wolves were fed. You're lying. My words came out thin, unconvincing even to my own ears. I'm not. He pulled something from his pocket, a ring, heavy gold, with a wolf's head etched into the seal. The royal crest. I'd seen it on official notices. If you don't come with me now, if we don't talk, you're going to die. The people who tried to kill me in that alley, they know I survived. They know someone helped me, and they're very good at finding loose ends. My legs felt weak. This isn't real. It is. You can come with me to the castle, where I can protect you, or go back to your boarding house and wait for the knife in the dark. His eyes bored into mine. Choose. If this is some sick game, it's not a game, Claire. The way he said my name, rough and deliberate, like he was tasting it, sent heat through my chest. It's survival. Yours and mine. Now choose. I looked back toward the market, toward my boarding house with its broken windows and moldy walls, toward the life I'd been clinging to that was killing me one hungry day at a time. Okay, I heard myself say. Okay, but if you try anything, you'll what? You're starved and a foot shorter than me. But his mouth curved into a boyish smile. Don't worry, I need you alive. That's the whole point. He offered his hand again. After a final moment of hesitation, I took it. The shock hit the instant our fingers touched, white-hot and undeniable, racing up my arm and pooling low in my stomach. His breath hitched. His fingers tightened around mine, and for a second we just stood there, frozen, staring at each other like we'd both touched a live wire. What was that? My voice came out shaky. That, he said roughly. That is what we need to talk about. The carriage that picked us up 3 blocks away was unmarked but unmistakably expensive. Black, lacquered wood, velvet seats, horses that looked like they cost more than my entire neighborhood. Harrison helped me up into it, then climbed in after and rapped twice on the ceiling. We lurched into motion. I sat as far from him as the interior allowed, which wasn't very far. My heart was still racing. This was insane. I was insane. Getting into a carriage with a strange man who claimed to be royalty, heading toward a castle, because he said people wanted to kill me. Breathe, Harrison said. I'm breathing. You're panicking. I'm deciding whether to panic. I pressed my hands against my thighs to stop them shaking. You said you were cursed. I was. What kind of curse? He was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the city rolling past. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. 6 months ago, I executed a woman for treason. She was a witch, old blood, powerful. Before she died, she cursed me, told me I'd lose my humanity the same way I'd lost my compassion, day by day, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but the beast. I stared at him. You don't look cursed. I wasn't showing it yet. Not on the outside. His jaw tightened. But on the inside, I was rotting, losing time, losing control. My wolf was taking over, and not the good parts, the feral parts. The parts that don't think, don't reason, just hunt. He finally looked at me. In another week, I would have been completely gone. A mad king. They would have had to put me down. The carriage felt very small suddenly. But you're fine now, I said slowly. You said I broke it? The curse had a condition. A cure, if you want to call it that. His voice went rough. It could only be broken by an act of pure selflessness from someone who had nothing left to give. Someone who'd lost everything and still chose kindness. My throat went tight, That's why you were in the alley. I've been searching for 6 months, wandering the territories, the human districts, looking for, he gestured vaguely, someone, anyone. Do you know how many people I found who had nothing? Thousands? Do you know how many of them gave me anything when I asked? I didn't want to know the answer. 3, Harrison said quietly. 3 people in 6 months. 1 was a child who didn't understand what nothing meant yet. 1 wanted something in return, recognition, reward. And then there was you. You looked at me, saw that I was starving, and gave me your last meal. No hesitation, no expectation. I didn't know. That's why it worked. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. You couldn't know. The selflessness had to be genuine, unmotivated. And when you touched me, when you pressed that bread into my hand, the curse broke. I should have felt relief. Maybe even pride. Instead, I felt manipulated. You tested people, I said slowly. Yes. And you learned that people are selfish. My voice hardened. Congratulations. You figured out what the rest of us already knew. His eyes flashed. I'm a king, Claire. I know exactly how selfish people are. I've built a career on it. Then what was the point? The point. He bit off the words, jaw clenching. Then, softer. The witch said the curse would teach me what I'd forgotten, what I'd chosen not to see. And she was right. I was helpless, vulnerable, weak. I felt what it was like to be invisible, to be desperate, to watch people look through me like I didn't exist. His voice dropped. I felt what you feel. Every day. The admission hung between us, exposing me. I'm not looking for your pity, I said stiffly. I'm not offering pity. He met my eyes. I'm offering truth. The curse broke, but it left something behind. A bond between us. I can feel you, Claire. What do you mean? Your emotions, your pain, your hunger. He said it like a confession. Right now, you're terrified and trying not to show it. You haven't eaten in 3 days and your stomach hurts. You're angry with me for manipulating you into this carriage, but you're also curious. You want to know what happens next. I couldn't breathe. That's not possible. It shouldn't be. But the curse tied us together somehow. When you saved me, you... He dragged a hand through his hair. I don't know the specifics. I have scholars working on it. But I know that when you hurt, I hurt. When you're afraid, I feel it like it's my own fear. And I can't unfeel it, Claire. The carriage clattered over cobblestones. Outside, the city was giving way to estate lands, then forest. So you brought me here to... what? My voice came out thin. Fix it? Break the bond? I brought you here to keep you alive. His tone went hard. The people who beat me and left me in that alley to die, they're still out there. And they will kill anyone connected to me. That includes you now, whether you like it or not. I didn't ask for this. I know. Something almost like regret crossed his face. But here we are. So you can either come to the castle where I can protect you, or go back to your boarding house and wait for the assassins. He paused. Or there's a third option. What third option? There's a ritual. It can sever the bond between us. You'd be free, completely. No connection, no danger, no more me in your head. But it has to be mutual. We both have to want it. And it has to happen soon, before the bond solidifies. Hope flared in my chest, sharp and painful. How soon? A week, maybe less. I looked at him, at the tension in his shoulders. The careful way he held himself, like he was trying not to take up too much space. The weariness in his eyes. Do you want it? I asked quietly. The ritual. Do you want to break the bond? Harrison was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," he said finally. "A week ago, I would have said yes without thinking. But now," his eyes met mine, and there was something raw in them. "Now I can feel what hunger actually is, what desperation is. And I think if I break this bond, I'll forget again. I'll go back to being the king I was, the one who closed the borders and let humans starve because it was expedient, the one who executed a woman and felt nothing." "It's better to forget," I said. "This kind of empathy, feeling everyone's pain, it'll destroy you." "Maybe. But maybe that's what I deserve." The honesty of it stunned me. We rode in silence for a while. The forest grew thicker outside the windows, the trees ancient and twisted. I caught glimpses of movement in the shadows, wolves pacing alongside the carriage, guarding it, guarding him. "What's it like?" I asked quietly. "Being able to feel what I feel?" Harrison was quiet for a moment. "It's like standing too close to a fire. Everything's sharp, raw." He looked away. "You think you're hiding what you feel, but you're not. Not from me." My stomach twisted. What am I feeling right now? Terrified. But you'd die before you'd show it. That stubbornness? He stopped, something almost like admiration crossing his face. "It's louder than the fear." Heat crept up my neck. "Stop reading me. I can't turn it off." "Try. I mean it." I wrapped my arms around myself. "If we're stuck with this bond for the next week, then you need to give me privacy. Mental privacy. I don't care if you can feel my emotions. Find a way to ignore them." For a moment, I thought he'd argue. Then he nodded once. "I'll try." "Thank you." The castle was visible now through the trees, a sprawling stone fortress that looked like it had grown out of the mountain itself. Towers and battlements and hundreds of windows glinting in the afternoon light. My new prison. Temporary, maybe, but still a cage. "When we get there," Harrison said, "my court is going to ask questions. About you. About why I brought a human into the castle. What do I tell them? The truth. That you saved my life, and I owe you a debt." He met my eyes. "They don't need to know about the bond. Not yet. That information is complicated." "Complicated how?" "Bonds like this. They're rare. In wolf culture, they're considered sacred. A mark of fate." His voice went tight. "Some wolves will see it as proof that you're supposed to be here. Others will see it as a threat. A human with influence over their king. I don't have influence over you. Don't you?" He leaned back, studying me. "You told me I should forget the empathy. Part of me listened. Part of me is already considering it." The carriage pulled through an enormous gate, into a courtyard filled with wolves, both shifted and human-formed. They stared as we rolled past. I saw suspicion, curiosity, hunger that had nothing to do with food. This was a mistake. Coming here, trusting him, believing any of this. Harrison's hand covered mine where it gripped the seat edge. "Breathe," he said again, quieter. "You're safe here. I promise." "You can't promise that." His thumb brushed over my knuckles, once, deliberate. "You saved my life, Claire. That means something. In my world, debts like that are binding." The carriage stopped. Harrison stepped out first, then offered his hand. I looked at him, at the castle looming above us in the cold air. Then I reluctantly took his hand and let him pull me into his world. The castle was even bigger on the inside. Endless corridors of stone and tapestry, staircases that spiraled up into darkness, rooms that echoed with centuries of history. Servants moved through the halls like ghosts, silent, efficient, barely looking at me. Harrison led me through it all without speaking, his hand at my elbow, guiding, claiming. Finally, we stopped at a door halfway up the east tower. "Your room," he said, pushing it open. I stepped inside and froze. Room was quite the understatement. This was a grand suite. 4-poster bed that could sleep 5 people. Sitting area with a fireplace already crackling. Bathroom through an archway with a tub the size of a small pond. Windows overlooking the forest, the mountains, the sky. "This is too much," I said faintly. "You'll be here at least a week. You need somewhere comfortable." "I need somewhere safe. This is..." I gestured helplessly. "This is a princess's room." "You're a guest of the king." He moved to the fireplace, adding another log, even though it didn't need it. Nervous energy, I realized with a jolt. He was nervous. "Harrison," he turned. "Why am I really here?" I asked quietly. "And don't say protection. You could have put me in a guest house, a safe location outside the castle, but you brought me here, into your home. Why?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the fire. "I need to understand it," he said finally. "What you are to me. What I'm becoming because of you." He looked at me and his eyes were raw. 6 months ago, I was a king who felt nothing. Now I feel everything. Your kindness broke me open, but I don't know how to be this person, this king who suddenly cares that his people are starving. I think if I let you leave before I figure it out, I'll lose whatever this is. My throat went tight. "I gave you bread. It's not that complicated. You gave me proof that people like you exist. People who've lost everything and still choose grace." He came closer to me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his body. "I've been king for 8 years, Claire. I've made countless cold decisions, closed borders, executed traitors. Let people suffer because it was strategic. The curse didn't make me cruel. It just revealed what I already was." His hands flexed at his sides, like he wanted to reach for me but didn't yet dare. "But when I feel your hunger, your fear, your stubborn hope, I'm a different kind of king. I don't know if that makes me weak or strong, but I know I need time to find out. And I need you here while I do." We stood there, inches apart, the fire crackling behind him. "What if I want the ritual?" I asked softly. "What if I want to break the bond and go back to my life?" Pain flashed across his face. "Then I'll give it to you. I'll have the scholars prepare everything, and we'll sever the connection, and you'll walk out of here with enough gold to start over somewhere safe." His voice went rough. "But I ask you to wait. Give it the week. Let me show you what this place could be, what I'd be, with you here to remind me." "I'm not your conscience, Harrison." "No, you're something more dangerous." He lifted a hand slowly and brushed a strand of hair back from my face. His fingers were warm, gentle. "You're proof that I was wrong." My pulse hammered. "About what?" His thumb grazed my cheekbone. "About people, kindness, whether any of it matters." His eyes searched mine. "Stay, please, just for the week. Give me the chance to understand what you are before I let you go." My mind told me to demand the ritual immediately, break the bond, take the gold, and run. But when I opened my mouth, what came out was 1 week. Relief rippled across his face. 1 week. On the condition that you keep your distance. No more touching. Even though my skin tingled where his fingers had been. No more reading my emotions unless it's an emergency. "Agreed," I nodded, stepping back, putting space between us. Harrison's smile was small, relieved, and for a brief moment, devastatingly human. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then he left, closing the door behind Iki. Him, leaving me alone in a princess's room in a wolf king's castle, wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. A servant, silent, doe-eyed, terrified of me for reasons I didn't understand, brought me clothes. Real clothes, not the worn pieces I'd been wearing. A dress in deep forest green, soft as butter, with sleeves that actually covered my wrists. Boots that fit. Undergarments that didn't have holes. I almost cried when I saw the bath. Hot, steaming water. Soap that smelled like lavender. A tub deep enough to sink into completely. I stayed in until my skin pruned and the water went lukewarm, scrubbing away 3 days of sweat, fear, and the grime of a life I was starting to realize I might never go back to. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that cost more than a month's rent, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked different, like a healthy person instead of a ghost drifting in the wind. My hair washed and drying in dark waves down my back. My face no longer gray with exhaustion. My body too thin still, but mine. Is this what Harrison sees when he looks at me? I thought. Or does he just feel my emotions and fill in the rest? The thought made me uncomfortable in ways I couldn't articulate. I dressed slowly, trying to remember the last time I'd worn something that fit properly. Cam's funeral, maybe. Mom had insisted we look presentable, even though we could barely afford the burial plot. A knock at the door made me jump. "Miss Holt?" A male voice cultured. "The king requests your presence at dinner." I opened the door to find a man in formal attire, dark jacket, silver buttons, the wolf crest embroidered on his collar. He was older, maybe 50, with gray at his temples, and eyes that assessed me carefully. "I'm Garrett," he said. "The king's advisor. I'll escort you to the dining hall." "I can find my own way." "The castle has 200 rooms and 3 miles of corridors. You'd be lost in 5 minutes. Please follow me." We walked in silence through endless halls, past tapestries showing wolves in battle, wolves in moonlight, wolves in every configuration of power and grace. Occasionally, I'd catch glimpses of other people, servants, nobles, guards, and they'd all stop and stare. "They're not used to humans," Garrett said without looking back, "especially not humans the king brings home personally." "He didn't bring me home. He brought me here for protection." "Is there a difference?" The dining hall was smaller than I'd expected, intimate even. A table for maybe 20 people, though only a handful of seats were occupied. Harrison sat at the head, still in the dark clothes from earlier, but somehow looking more formal, more kingly. 3 others flanked him, 2 men, 1 woman, all watching me with varying degrees of suspicion. Harrison stood when I entered. The others followed his lead, reluctantly. "Claire." He gestured to the seat at his right hand. "Please." I sat. The chair was too big, too ornate. I felt like a child playing dress-up. "Everyone, this is Claire Holt," Harrison said. "She's my guest for the next week. You'll treat her with the same respect you'd treat any visiting dignitary." "A human dignitary," the woman corrected with faint disdain in her voice. She was beautiful, sharp cheekbones, ice-blonde hair, eyes like cut glass. "Sylvain," Harrison's voice held a warning. "I'm simply observing." Sylvain smiled at me, all teeth. "It's not every day our king brings home a stray. That's enough." But Sylvain wasn't done. "Does the council know you've granted sanctuary to a human? Given our current border policies, it seems hypocritical, unless there's something special about this particular human we should know about." The air in the room went taut. Harrison's eyes flashed, gold bleeding through the gray. I said enough. Sylvain leaned back, still smiling, but she shut up. The meal arrived in waves: roasted meat, winter vegetables, fresh bread that made my mouth water, wine that looked like liquid ruby. I'd never seen this much food in one place. My stomach cramped just looking at it. Eat, Harrison said quietly, just for me. You need it. I picked up my fork, but everyone was watching, so I put it down again. I'm not very hungry, I lied. Claire, Harrison's voice dropped. I can feel your hunger. It's been gnawing at you for days. Eat. I took a bite of bread, then another. After the third bite, I couldn't stop. The others returned to their meals, to their hushed conversations, but I felt their eyes on me, felt their judgment. The poor human, half-starved, eating like she'd never seen food before. So, Miss Holt, one of the men said, younger, maybe 30, with a crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. How exactly did you save our king's life? I swallowed hard. I gave him food. Food? Bread. He looked like he needed it. And that's worth all this? He gestured vaguely at the room. Royal protection, a suite in the East Tower, a seat at the king's right hand. Marcus, Garrett said sharply, but Marcus pressed on. I'm just trying to understand the situation. We have a human in the castle, a human connected to the king in some unspecified way, while the rest of her kind are starving outside our borders. It raises questions. Then ask me, Harrison cut in coldly. Not her. Okay, why is she here? Because I owe her a debt, and because anyone who helps me becomes a target for my enemies. Harrison's tone could have frozen wine. Claire stays until I'm certain she's safe. That's the end of the discussion. Marcus's eyes slid to me. Is that what you want, Miss Holt? To stay? All eyes turned my way. I thought about my boarding house, the factory rejections, the cold hunger and endless grinding fight to stay alive. Then I looked at the wine in my glass. Real wine, not the rot gut that burned going down. The choice wasn't exactly difficult. I'm staying, I said quietly. For now. Sylvain laughed. How diplomatic. The meal continued, but the tension didn't dissipate. I ate in silence, hyper-aware of every bite, every sip, every move I made. These people didn't want me here. They saw me as a threat, an inconvenience, a puzzle that didn't fit their world. And maybe they were right. After dinner, Harrison walked me back to my room. We didn't speak until we reached my door. I'm sorry, he said, about Sylvain and Marcus. They're not usually so hostile, but they don't trust me. I get it. I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly exhausted. Harrison, are you just trying to ease your conscience by keeping me close? Pain flashed across his face. Is that what you think? I don't know what to think. I pushed off the doorframe. I can feel you watching me, Harrison, even when you're not in the room. The bond, it goes both ways, doesn't it? He went very still. You can feel me? Not your emotions, not like you can feel mine. But there's something, this awareness. Like I always know where you are, what direction you're facing. I wrapped my arms around myself. It's invasive. I know, he admitted. So what do we do about it? We wait, give the scholars time to research the ritual. And in the meantime, he lifted a hand, then dropped it. We try to understand it. What if there's nothing to understand? What if it's just magic, random and meaningless? It's not meaningless. His voice went rough. The witch who cursed me, she chose her words carefully. She said I'd lose my humanity the way I'd lost my compassion, and the cure had to be pure selflessness, from someone with nothing left to give. That's specific, Claire. Intentional. She wanted me to learn something. My throat tightened. What I did doesn't make me special. It makes me naive. He lifted a hand slowly and cupped my face. His palm was warm against my cheek. No, it makes you strong. And I think the witch knew that. I think she knew I'd need someone like you to show me what real strength looks like. I wanted to remind him to keep his distance, respect our boundaries, but I didn't. This is a bad idea, I whispered as he leaned in. I know. We barely know each other, I continued. I know that too. And at the end of the week, I might leave. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. But right now, in this moment, you're here, and I'm grateful for that. We stood there, close enough to breathe the same air, and I felt it, that hum between us. The bond, yes, but also something else. Something that had nothing to do with magic, and everything to do with the way he looked at me, like I mattered. Harrison, I said softly. Claire. If you kiss me right now, I won't stop you. His breath hitched. That's why I'm not going to. Why not? Because you deserve the choice. Not just in this moment, but in every moment. He stepped back, letting his hand fall. When we kiss, if we kiss, it'll be because you decided you wanted to. Not because of the bond, not because you're grateful, not because you feel obligated, but because you choose me. My heart was pounding. That's very noble of you. I'm not noble. I'm selfish. His eyes were dark. I want you to choose me, Claire. Then he was gone, walking down the corridor, leaving me alone with my racing pulse and the ghost of his touch on my face. I went inside, closed my door, and leaned against it. What the hell am I doing? But deep down, I already knew the answer. I was falling for him, for the broken king who felt too much, and the man who looked at me like I was something precious, for the honesty in his voice when he admitted he didn't know how to be better but wanted to try. And that terrified me more than being back on the streets. The next 3 days passed in a strange blur. Harrison kept his word about distance. He didn't touch me again, didn't corner me in hallways or pull me into intimate conversations. But he was there, always. Like a shadow I couldn't shake. At breakfast, sitting across from me, asking quiet questions about my life before, what I liked to read, what I'd wanted to be before Cam got sick, whether I missed my mother's cooking. At midday, when he'd find me in the library, he'd sit nearby, working through correspondence, occasionally reading passages aloud and asking my opinion. At dinner, with his hostile court, where he'd deflect their barbed questions and steer conversations toward safer topics, trade routes, border patrols, winter preparations. And at night, when I'd feel him pacing in his room somewhere above mine, unable to sleep, the bond thrumming between us like a plucked string. I learned things about him. Small, important things. He took his coffee black and bitter. He read military history for pleasure. He had a scar on his left shoulder from a childhood fight with his brother, a brother who'd died in a border skirmish 3 years ago, which was when Harrison had closed the borders and stopped caring about anything except keeping his people safe. He'd been engaged once, to a wolf from a powerful family, but she'd broken it off when she realized he didn't love her. Couldn't love her, maybe. Couldn't love anyone. I thought something was wrong with me, he admitted one afternoon in the library. We were alone, the fire crackling, snow falling outside the windows. I'd see people in love and think they were faking it, playing some game I didn't understand. And then the curse happened, and I thought, maybe this is justice. Maybe I deserve to lose my humanity because I never had it to begin with. That's not true, I said. Isn't it? He looked at me and his eyes were haunted. I executed that witch because she tried to help humans cross the border illegally. She said they were starving, that I had a responsibility to help. I told her policy was policy. Then I watched her die and felt nothing. You were doing your job. My job was to protect my people. Not just wolves, but I'd stopped seeing humans as people. You were problems, numbers on a page, mouths to feed that weren't my responsibility. I set down my book. At least you're honest about it. Most people pretend they care while doing nothing. I'm not sure honesty makes it better, he replied. It doesn't, but it's a start. He laughed, bitter, broken. You're very wise for someone so young. I'm not wise. I just know what it's like to be invisible. I met his eyes. You made people invisible, Harrison. You made choices that erased us. And yeah, maybe you feel bad about it now, but feeling bad doesn't bring back the people who died. Doesn't feed the ones still starving. So what are you going to do about it? He was quiet for a long moment. I'm reopening the borders. Slowly, carefully, but reopening them. I've already sent word to the council. They're not happy, but they'll comply. My heart stuttered. Because of the bond? Because of you. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Because I can't unfeel what you showed me. And because if I go back to being the king I was before, then the curse wins, and I'll have learned nothing. I didn't know what to say. Thank you, I managed finally. Don't thank me yet. It's going to be messy. There will be resistance from both sides. Wolves who think I'm being weak. Humans who don't trust that it's real. His mouth quirked. But maybe that's what leadership is. Making the hard choice even when no one likes it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the snow fall. Then Harrison broke the silence. I want to kiss you. My breath caught. But I won't, he continued. Not until you ask. I promised. It's getting harder to keep that promise, though. I know. I met his eyes. I feel it too. The pull. Is it the bond? Or is it something else? I'm not sure. Does it matter? Yes, he held my gaze. If it's just the bond, it'll fade when we break it. But if it's something else, he trailed off. Then we're in trouble, I finished. We stared at each other, and the air between us felt electric. I could feel my pulse in my throat, could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, could feel him, his want, his restraint, his barely controlled need. Harrison, I whispered. Don't. His voice was strained. Don't say my name like that unless you mean it. Mean what? You know what. And I did. I knew exactly what he was asking, what he wanted, what I wanted too, even though it was stupid and reckless and... A knock at the door shattered the moment. Garrett entered, looking apologetic. Your Majesty, the council is assembled. They're waiting for you. Harrison stood, smoothing his expression into something neutral. I'll be right there. He glanced at me. We'll continue this conversation later. Will we? Yes. A promise and a threat all at once. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my hammering heart and the certainty that something had shifted between us, something we couldn't take back. I lay in my too-big bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling Harrison somewhere above me, awake, pacing, the bond thrumming like a live wire. Finally, I gave up, threw on a robe, and padded barefoot into the corridor. The castle at night was a different creature, all shadows and echoes and the occasional howl from the forest beyond. I wandered without direction, letting my feet carry me through halls I didn't recognize, past rooms I'd never seen. And then I found myself at a door I knew, somehow. Could feel him behind it. I knocked before I could talk myself out of it. Harrison opened it immediately, like he'd been expecting me. He was shirtless, wearing only loose sleep pants, his hair mussed. I tried not to stare at the planes of his chest, the scar on his shoulder, the way his muscles shifted when he moved. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. "No." "Welcome to the club." He stepped aside. "Come in." Against my best judgment, I stepped in, drawn by something I couldn't dare name. His room was simpler than mine, fewer furnishings, darker colors. A desk covered in papers, bookshelves crammed with military treatises, a bed that looked slept in but cold. "I can feel you," I said, turning to face him. "At night, when you can't sleep, I feel it." "I'm sorry. Don't be." I wrapped my arms around myself. I needed to see how you were doing." He moved closer, stopping a few feet away. We stood there in the firelight, and I could feel it, the tension, the want, the impossible pull of him. And I thought about his promise, about the fact that I could walk out right now and he wouldn't stop me. "Harrison," I said. "Claire." A warning. I stopped, searching for words. Something flickered across his face. Hope, maybe. Or hunger. "Stay," he said quietly. "We don't have to do anything. We can just..." He gestured at the couch near the fire. "Talk. Whatever you need." I moved to the couch. He joined me, careful to leave space between us. "Tell me about your brother," he said after a moment. So I did. I told him about Cam's optimism, how he'd crack jokes even when we hadn't eaten in 2 days, how the fever came on fast. 1 week he was fine, the next, he couldn't stand. We'd scraped together half of what the healer wanted, but half wasn't enough, so I watched him die day by day. "I should have done more," I said, voice breaking. "Should have stolen, begged, something. But I just sat there and held his hand and told him it would be okay." Harrison's hand covered mine. "It wasn't your fault." "I know. Logically, I know, but it doesn't feel that way." "Grief doesn't care about logic." His thumb brushed my knuckles. "My brother died in a border skirmish, ambushed by rogues. I was king. I had all the power in the world, and I couldn't save him. Couldn't even get there in time to say goodbye. And for years, I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't feel it. But I did. I do." I turned to look at him, and his face was raw with old pain. "The curse," I said slowly. "It didn't just make you feel other people's emotions. It made you feel your own." "Yes," he laughed, hollow. "Turns out I'd been running from them for so long. I'd convinced myself they didn't exist. But they were there, buried, waiting." We sat in silence, hands touching, the fire casting dancing shadows. "I'm going to ask you something," Harrison said eventually, "and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "If there was no bond, if we'd met under different circumstances, as different people, would you still be here?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe. You're more than I expected. Better and worse and more complicated. But I think..." I stopped, gathering courage. "I think I would have noticed you anyway. Bond or no bond." His breath caught. "Claire, I'm still scared. Of this. Of you. Of what it means if I choose to stay after the week is up." I turned my hand over, lacing my fingers through his. "Because staying means giving up my old life completely. Means stepping into your world and all its politics and dangers. I don't know if I'm cut out for that. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm really not. You are." He brought our joined hands to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. You survived things that would have broken most people, and you came out the other side still capable of kindness. That's not weakness, Claire. That's steel. Tears pricked my eyes. Don't make me cry. Why not? Crying isn't weakness either. Says the king who spent years pretending he didn't have feelings. He smiled, a real smile, warm and crooked. Touché. We sat there until the fire burned low and the castle settled into deep night silence. And somewhere in that silence, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to break the bond. Didn't want to walk away from this man who'd learned to feel again because of me. I wanted to stay. The scholars came on the 5th day with news about the ritual. Garrett gathered us in Harrison's study, me, Harrison, 3 elderly wolves who looked like they'd stepped out of ancient history. We've researched the bond, the eldest said, a woman with silver hair and eyes like storm clouds. It's rare, but not unprecedented. The last recorded case was 400 years ago. Can it be broken? Harrison asked. Yes, it's complex, but achievable. She spread papers across the desk, diagrams, incantations, lists of ingredients. However, there's a complication. Of course there was. The bond has solidified faster than expected. Normally it takes months, but in your case, she looked between us. It's already reached the point where breaking it will cause significant pain, possibly permanent damage. The air left my lungs. What kind of damage? A severing of this magnitude. It's like losing a limb you didn't know you had. You'd both survive, but you'd feel the absence for a long time. She paused. And there's a chance, small but real, that breaking it could kill one or both of you. How small a chance? Harrison's voice was carefully controlled. 10%, maybe 15%. That's unacceptable. Harrison's voice was flat. You're the one who wanted the ritual researched. Because I thought it would be safe. He turned to the scholars. Find another way. Your Majesty, there is no other way. The bond either breaks or it doesn't. Then it doesn't. He looked at me. We keep it. End of discussion. My temper flared. Don't I get a say? Of course you do. I'm asking you to choose to stay. You're not asking. You're deciding for me because you're scared. Yes! His eyes blazed. I'm scared. Is that what you want to hear? I'm terrified of losing you to some ritual that might kill you, and I won't apologize for that. The honesty of it stunned me into silence. The eldest scholar cleared her throat. There is one other option. We both turned. The bond can be accepted, formalized. In wolf culture, bonds like this are seen as fated pairings. If you both choose to keep it, choose each other, the bond stabilizes, becomes permanent, yes, but also safer. No risk of death. No pain. What's the catch? I asked quietly. His queen. The word hung in the air like a grenade. Queen. Me. A human who'd been stealing rotted potatoes a week ago. No, I said immediately. That's insane. Why? Harrison's voice was soft, dangerous. Because I'm not queen material. I'm not even wolf. So? So your people will never accept it. Your court already hates me. Can you imagine what they'd do if you made me queen? They'd adjust. Harrison, or I'd make them adjust. He crossed to me and his eyes were fierce. You saved my life. You showed me how to be human again. You're the reason I'm reopening the borders, the reason I'm trying to be a better king. His hands framed my face, gentle despite the intensity. If that doesn't make you queen material, what does? We've known each other 5 days. I know. And you're asking me to be your queen. No, I'm asking you to stay. His thumb brushed my cheek. Choose this bond instead of risking your life to break it. Everything else, titles, politics, crowns, we'll figure it out. I searched his eyes, looking for doubt, for calculation, for any sign that this was about strategy or obligation. All I found was naked honesty and something that looked dangerously like love. What if it doesn't work? I whispered. What if I'm a terrible queen? Then you'll be a terrible queen, and I'll help you figure it out. He smiled, crooked and soft. But I don't think you will be. I think you'll challenge every assumption, question every decision, and make me a better king in spite of myself. You have a lot of faith in me. We stood there, his hands on my face, my heart in my throat. If I stay, I said slowly, I'm not staying as your charity case. I'm staying because... I stopped, looking for the right words. Because somewhere in the last 5 days, I started caring about you. The real you. The man who feels too much and doesn't know how to fix the damage he's done, but is trying anyway. And I want to see where that goes. Bond or no bond. Something blazed in his eyes. Say that again. Which part? The part where you care about me. Heat flooded my cheeks. You already know. You've been feeling it through the bond. I want to hear you say it again. Why? He leaned closer, and I could feel his breath on my face. I need to know you choose me, Claire. Not the king, but me. I choose you. Say my name. Harrison. Again. Harrison. Barely a whisper. He kissed me. Finally kissed me. And it was nothing like I'd imagined. Not gentle, not tentative. It was fierce, hungry and claiming. Like he'd been holding himself back for so long, he'd forgotten how to be anything but intense. His hands tightened on my face, angling me exactly where he wanted. I kissed him back with everything I had, all the fear and desire and stubborn hope I'd been carrying. My hands found his chest, his shoulders, his hair, pulling him closer, closer, never close enough. The bond sang between us, amplifying everything, until I couldn't tell where my feelings ended and his began. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. Don't choose the ritual. Don't risk it. Just stay. I'll stay, I whispered. Not because you asked, but because I want to. Relief crashed through him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to be a pain in your ass. He laughed, and for the time it was free and joyful. I'm counting on it. We stood there in the study, tangled together. And for the first time since Cam died, the ache in my chest wasn't just loss. The council meeting to announce our mating bond was a disaster. Sylvain called me a manipulator. Marcus demanded proof that I hadn't bewitched the king. 3 others walked out in protest. Harrison sat through it all with a calm I didn't feel, his hand on mine under the table, and told them, She stays. She's my mate. That's final. And if we refuse to recognize it, Sylvain asked coldly, then you refuse to recognize your king. Choose carefully. In the end, they caved. But the damage was done. The rumors spread through the castle like fire. The human who'd seduced the king, who'd tricked him with her poverty, who was using the bond to control him. I heard the whispers in hallways, felt the stares in corridors. Ignore them, Harrison told me that night, pulling me close in his bed where I'd taken to sleeping. They'll adjust. Will they? They'll have to. You're not going anywhere. I wasn't. For better or worse, I'd made my choice. 3 weeks later, when Harrison formally reopened the borders and invited human refugees into the territory, I stood beside him on the castle steps, wearing the green dress that had been my first, holding his hand, watching hundreds of people stream through the gates looking thin and hopeful. And I felt it. Purpose. I might not have been born to this role, might never fully fit into this world of wolves and politics and ancient traditions. But I could do this. I could stand beside a king who'd learned to feel again and help him remember what it meant to lead with compassion. Take care of people the way my mother had taught me. Choose kindness, even when it was hard. Harrison's hand tightened on mine. Through the bond, I felt his gratitude, his love, his fear that he'd fail at this, at being the king these people needed. I squeezed back. You won't fail. We won't fail. And I believed it. Thank you so much for listening. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. And if you enjoyed my story, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.